Kicking us off, we have Reno Druid. Now, I love this deck because it's a hybrid build. We have room for the basic dragon package as well as the Bloodsworn combo for explosive finishes. And on top of that, we have the Reno package. The Reno package allows us to stabilize the game by clearing boards and gaining life with both Renos. Now, of course, the deck also runs the standard Druid stabilization package to get us to the late game too. On top of this, cards like Elise allow us to outcard advantage most decks, whilst Zephyr does all of the above. Most notably, if you play it on turn 2, you often get Ramp. If you play it versus a full enemy board, you'll get the best board wipe. And if you play it whilst they're low, you'll often get some burn for the final bit of damage. Now, looking at the Dragon package, the biggest benefit is that it enables us to run to additional early game ramp. We've got just enough dragons that these cards are online on turn 2 most of the time. In addition to this, we also run the standard Druid ramp spells. With all this mana, we have some epic dragon payoffs which are usually enough to win the game. If it's not enough, you can rest assured knowing you have the Bloodsworn combo to go over the top. The combo starts by either having 20 mana thanks to Guff, or reducing the cost of your minions to 1 and refreshing your mana crystals. With an abundance of mana, you use Brand to double battle cries and start chucking down your Astalor Bloodsworns with double battle cries. That's 96 damage. Just make sure you use your board space wisely. If you're not interested in playing a Reno deck, I've also added a deck code to a full-on Dragon Druid deck too.
Next up, we have Even Totem Shaman. In 2018, Witchwood released a wave of even cost decks. Fast forwards to now, and even Shaman is still an aggressive staple wild archetype. Reducing the hero power to 1 mana means you can pump out an assortment of totems consistently. In addition to these, there's an assortment of powerful low-cost totem cards to fill the deck with, giving it a mean early curve. Even though totems on their own might seem harmless, the deck runs powerful buffs, making even the most feeble of totems a threat. If the army of totems isn't enough, they also have large payoff creatures to push the final chunks of damage through. Thanks to the 1 mana hero power, it's very easy to cheat out these large creatures in the early turns. Outside of the totems, this deck also runs some disruption to slow down your opponent, buying you time to finish them off.
Now we have Buff Paladin. This deck is good because it's an aggro deck that tends to beat other aggro decks, mainly because we run Prismatic Beam. This then enables us to run Showdown as a sweet little combo too. Showdown also works well with Crusader Aura because it turns a neutral advantage into a one-sided advantage as our 3/3s become 5/4s eating their 3/3. The deck also runs a lot of other buff spells too, many of which are holy spells that reduce the cost of Garden's Grace, our big finisher. I think buffs are well positioned right now due to a lack of hard removal outside of Reno. The best targets for our buffs have to be Kotori Lightblade and Crab Rider because they're both essentially doubling our buff spells. We also run some other utility creatures to slow our opponent down and ETC Band Manager for even further utility. To round out the deck, we have Card Advantage, holding the deck together. It's also worth noting that Call to Arms is the MVP here. Coining it out turn 3 on the draw, followed by a big buff spell is usually game-ending.
Let's look at Reno Shaman. I think one of Reno Shaman's strengths is its stabilization tools, with life gain and an assortment of board wipes. Don't forget your Murloc package is a board wipe too. Then on top of this, there's cards to slow your opponents down too by devolving them or freezing them. A big tool Reno Shaman gained is Dr. Holiday. The Doctor is even okay in slower matchups as the growing taunts can be a clock if need be. Then we have the Reno Hate cards. Usually in the Reno Mirror match, whoever resolves one of these earliest will win the game. So make sure you're grabbing a Macaw off of ETC Band Manager in the Mirror match. Then of course we have Shudderwalk as the game-ending win con, usually by dealing 14 damage again and again and again. Because of Shudderwalk, we need to run Grumble and Chain Gang. If your Chain Gang ETB triggers before Grumbles when you play Shudderwalk, you'll get another Shudderwalk added to your hand. This is how you go infinite. Cold Storage is a 1 mana backup plan, enabling you to add a second Shudderwock to your hand for 10 mana total. Because we run Shudderwock, there's a load of ETB cards in the deck that are just good in general. Because we're running so many of these ETB cards, it would be rude to not run Bran and Bolner to increase our ETBs, of course.
This deck is Reno Hunter. Unlike other Reno decks, this is a much more aggressive list. First, let's look at the small beasts. We run Starving Buzzard as an early game card advantage engine. To maximize this, we run cards that produce multiple beast cards. We also run a Messenger Buzzard as it synergizes well with these early beasts. We then run an assortment of utility mid-range cards to get us to the late game, some of which are Beasts too. Speaking of beasts, Harpoon Gun is very powerful in this deck, to the point we even run Instrument Tech as a pseudo-second copy. This weapon can find us 0 mana versions of our early beast package, or even better yet, it can reduce the mana of our big beasts. Our big beasts are our main finishers. Here, Dralodon is an army of large beasts that can go near infinite if they have charge, which works well alongside Tundra Rhino. Finishing off our big beasts is Shadehound, making all our other beasts much bigger. In combination, these 3 beasts can easily close a game out, which is why we run Stranglethorn Heart as our final late-game blowout card to play them all over again, but this time, all together. The Reno package helps to ensure we make it late enough in the game that we can play our big beast package, alongside the poisonous Dreadscale combo as another board wipe.